I am Elena, 52 years old, and on the night I was supposed to be celebrating the start of my new life, I was lying face down on a hotel carpet, listening to my husband plot to steal every penny I owned and have me committed to a mental institution. Before I tell you about the moment I destroyed his life with a single push of a button, I want to know who is listening. Please, tell me where you are watching from in the comments below. It helps me to know I am not shouting into the void. The space beneath the king-sized bed in the Plaza Hotel's honeymoon suite was tighter than I expected. The carpet pressed against my cheek, smelling of lavender cleaning powder and decades of trapped dust. I held my breath until my lungs burned. My heart was hammering against my ribs with such violence that I was terrified the vibration would travel through the floorboards and give me away. I had wanted to be playful. That was the pathetic part that still makes me cringe when I look back on it. Mark, my husband of exactly 6 hours, had stepped out to take a business call regarding a property development. In a moment of giddy, girlish foolishness that felt entirely out of character for a retired forensic accountant, I had decided to hide. I wanted to surprise him. I wanted to see him laugh, to see that boyish grin that had charmed me into saying I do faster than I had ever done anything in my life. But when the heavy oak door clicked open, Mark wasn't laughing. And he wasn't alone. The footsteps were wrong. One pair belonged to my husband, heavy, confident strides that I had grown to associate with safety. The other set was different. Sharp. Rhythmic. The distinct, aggressive click of expensive heels on hardwood. I recognized that walk instantly. It was a walk that demanded attention. It was Barbara. My mother-in-law. I froze. My hand clamped over my mouth to stifle a gasp. Why was his mother in our bridal suite at 11:30 p.m. on our wedding night? Close the door, Mark's voice sliced through the silence. The tone sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Gone was the warm, honey-dipped baritone he used when he whispered about our future or complimented my dress. This voice was cold, sharp, and dripping with irritation. It was the voice of a man who was done performing. "Did anyone see you come up?" he asked, the lock clicking shut. "Please, Mark," Barbara's voice was dismissive, carrying that haughty edge she usually reserved for waiters. "I'm not an amateur. The staff thinks I'm bringing you a forgotten wedding gift. Now, quit stalling. Did you get it?" I lay there, my eyes squeezed shut, tears leaking out and soaking into the carpet. "Get what?" "I got it," Mark said. I heard the rustle of stiff paper. General power of attorney. Full access. She signed it right between the catering contract and the florist's invoice. She didn't even read it. She didn't read it? Barbara let out a dry, cruel laugh. It sounded like dry leaves being crushed. God, desperation makes women stupid. You'd think a retired accountant would know better. She trusts me, Mom, Mark sneered. She thinks I'm her second chance at a fairy tale. The old fool was so grateful I looked at her, she would have signed a death warrant if I asked. Every word was a physical blow. Old fool. Desperation. The man who had held my hand during the ceremony, whose eyes had welled up with tears as I walked down the aisle, it was all a lie. A performance. A transaction. Okay, Barbara's tone shifted to business. What's the timeline? We can't afford any slip-ups. You know the investors on the shell company are getting impatient. The bank's open at 9, Mark replied. I could hear him pacing, his shoes stopping just inches from where my hand lay hidden by the bed skirt. I have the routing numbers. I'll transfer the $500,000 from her primary savings to the offshore account immediately. By the time she wakes up and orders room service, she'll be destitute. And the house? Barbara asked. I'm listing it next week. I already have a buyer lined up, one of the LLCs we set up last month. We sell it below market value to ourselves, flip it, and wash the profit. But she will fight back, Barbara warned. She has that lawyer friend. Henderson. Here's the kicker, Mark lowered his voice, and I had to strain to hear him over the roaring of blood in my ears. Once the money is gone, she's going to panic. She's going to scream, accuse me, act hysterical. And that's when we use the clause in her medical history. The anxiety? Better, Mark said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Paranoia. I've already planted the seeds with her sister, Sarah. We'll say she's having a breakdown. I'll use the power of attorney to commit her to that facility upstate, the one where your friend works. By the time anyone listens to her, she'll be medicated and diagnosed as incompetent. We get the money, the house, and total control. The room spun. My stomach lurched, threatening to empty itself. They weren't just planning to rob me. They were planning to erase me. They were going to gaslight me, steal my life, and lock me away. They were going to use my own money to pay for my imprisonment. You're a good son, Barbara said, the pride in her voice sickeningly genuine. Now, come have a drink downstairs. Let her sleep. Tomorrow is a big day. Yeah, Mark laughed. Tomorrow I'm rich. The door opened and closed. The lock clicked. Silence rushed back into the room, heavy and suffocating. I didn't scream. I didn't crawl out and smash the room to pieces. I lay there, under the bed, staring at the dust motes dancing in the slice of moonlight on the floor. The shock was receding, replaced by something colder. Something harder. They thought they were dealing with a desperate, lonely old woman. They forgot who I was before I was Mark's wife. I was Elena Vance, and for 30 years, I hunted corporate embezzlers for a living. I tracked down hidden assets and exposed securities fraud for federal indictments. Mark hadn't just married a victim. He had married a detective. Welcome to my channel, where I share real stories of betrayal and justice. If you're enjoying this so far, or if you're just shocked by the audacity of these people, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me share these warnings with more people who need to hear them. To understand the magnitude of the hate that was currently crystallizing in my chest, you have to understand the love that preceded it. Or rather, the illusion of love. I met Mark 6 months ago. It seems fast now, I know. I can see you shaking your heads through the screen. 6 months? Elena, are you crazy? But at 52, after a decade of widowhood and a career that demanded I look at everyone as a potential criminal, I was tired. I was lonely. And Mark. Mark was like a splash of color in a gray world. He was introduced to me by the one person I trusted implicitly, my younger sister, Sarah. Sarah had always been the chaotic one, the one I had to bail out of debt, the one whose rent I paid when she forgot. But she was my blood. When she called me that Tuesday afternoon, her voice was bubbling with excitement. You have to meet him, Elena, Sarah had gushed over lunch, her eyes sparkling. He's in real estate, successful, charming, and, this is the best part, he specifically asked about you. He saw your picture on my mantle and asked who the stunning woman with the intelligent eyes was. Flattery. The oldest trick in the book, and I fell for it like a schoolgirl. Our first date was at a bistro in downtown Chicago. Mark was 42, 10 years my junior, but he carried himself with an old-school sophistication that made the age gap feel irrelevant. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that whispered money, but he drove a sensible sedan. I don't believe in flashing wealth, he told me that night, pouring me a glass of Pinot Noir. His eyes were a deep, soulful brown that seemed to hold 1,000 stories. I believe in building legacy. Instability. He played the part perfectly. He didn't ask for money. In fact, for the first 3 months, he insisted on paying for everything. Dinners, theater tickets, weekend getaways to Napa. He created a false sense of security, a baseline of financial stability that disarmed my professional instincts. He was investing. I see that now. He was putting down the initial capital to secure a much larger return. He was a master of love bombing. He filled the voids in my life I didn't even know I had. He sent flowers to my office on random Tuesdays with notes that said, "Thinking of you." He remembered that I liked my coffee with a dash of cinnamon. He listened to me talk about my late husband, George, with patience and what looked like genuine empathy. "You deserve to be happy, Elena," he would say, holding my hand across the table, his thumb stroking my knuckles. "You've spent your whole life catching bad guys and balancing books. Let someone take care of you for a change." That was the hook. Let someone take care of you. I was a forensic accountant. My entire career was built on spotting patterns, finding the missing pennies, noticing when the numbers didn't add up in complex embezzlement schemes. But Mark didn't present me with numbers, he presented me with emotions. And emotions are messy. They blur the lines. There were red flags, of course. Tiny ones. Glitches in the matrix that I chose to ignore because I wanted the fantasy to be real. Like the time he asked, very casually, about the structure of my savings. We were cooking dinner at my place. He was chopping vegetables, looking domestic and safe. "Just curious," he'd said, not even looking up from the cutting board. "Do you keep your assets in high-yield bonds or liquid cash? The market is so volatile right now, I worry about you losing value on your retirement." "Mostly liquid right now," I had answered, sipping my wine. "I liquidated George's life insurance policy to reinvest, but I haven't decided where to put it yet. It's sitting in the savings account." He paused. Just for a fraction of a second. "That's a lot of cash to have sitting idle. You should let me look at it. I could roll it into one of my commercial developments. Safe returns, double the market rate." I had laughed it off. "I don't mix business with pleasure, Mark." He hadn't pushed. He just smiled. "Smart woman. That's why I love you." Then there was the vagueness about his own projects. He claimed to be developing a luxury condo complex downtown. Whenever I asked to see the site, there was always a delay. "Permit issues," he would say, rubbing his temples, looking stressed. "The city inspectors are a nightmare. I don't want to bore you with work, Elena. When I'm with you, I just want to be with us." And then there was Barbara. My mother-in-law. I met her only a month before the wedding. She was an ice queen wrapped in Chanel. She looked at me not as a daughter-in-law, but as an appraisal. She scanned my jewelry, my shoes, my handbag. "The house," she said during our first tea together. "It's a Victorian restoration, yes? Fully paid off?" "Yes," I said proudly. "I finished the mortgage last year." "No mortgage," she mused, tapping a manicured nail against her china cup. "That's convenient. And you have no children?" "No," I said, feeling the familiar pang of regret. "Just me." "Good," she said. "Less complication." I thought she was just being a hard, protective mother. I thought she was worried about inheritance law for her son. I didn't realize she was the CEO of this little criminal enterprise, and Mark was just the face of the operation. The trap was set perfectly. Sarah, my sister, pushed for the wedding harder than anyone. "Why wait?" Sarah argued when I suggested a long engagement. "You love him. He loves you. Life is short, Elena. Look at what happened to George. You could wait forever and miss your chance." So I said yes. I planned the wedding. I paid for the wedding. Mark's funds were tied up in escrow, a phrase I accepted because it's common in real estate. I walked down that aisle believing I was the luckiest woman alive. I looked at Mark standing at the altar, looking handsome and devoted, and I thought, finally. I was walking toward my future. I didn't know I was walking into a slaughterhouse. The memory that haunted me the most as I lay under that bed wasn't the wedding vows we had exchanged hours ago. It was what happened 3 days prior. It was the moment the trap snapped shut, and I had actually thanked them for it. We were in my living room. The chaos of wedding prep was all around us, boxes of favors, seating charts, garment bags hanging on the doors. The house smelled of lilies and anxiety. Mark had come over with a bottle of Dom Perignon and a thick leather portfolio tucked under his arm. "We need to celebrate," he had said, popping the cork with a festive pop. "And we need to get the boring stuff out of the way so we can focus on the honeymoon." He poured me a glass, generous, brimming. I drank it. I was stressed, tired, and happy. My guard wasn't just down, it was non-existent. "What's in the folder?" I asked, settling onto the sofa, tucking my legs under me. "Just the usual," Mark said, sitting close to me. His thigh pressed warm against mine, a physical reassurance. "Vendor contracts for the venue, the insurance updates for the travel to Bora Bora, and a few things regarding the house." "The house?" I frowned slightly. "What about the house?" "Well, since I'm moving in officially," he smiled, that disarming, boyish grin that made my knees weak. "I want to make sure I contribute. I'm setting up a direct deposit to handle the utilities and taxes. I just need your authorization to link the accounts so I can pay bills on your behalf while we're traveling. You don't want to be worrying about the electric bill on the beach, do you?" It sounded so logical. So considerate. This was the man who wanted to take care of me. "And," he added, pulling out a document from the bottom of the stack, "this is just a standard power of attorney. Limited, of course. Just in case something happens while we're traveling. If, God forbid, you get sick or injured, I need to be able to make medical decisions or access funds to get you airlifted." I took the papers. The top one was indeed a catering confirmation. The second was the travel insurance. But beneath them, the text grew dense. Legal jargon. General power of attorney. My accountant brain flickered to life. The words jumped out at me. "General?" I asked, squinting at the fine print. "Mark, this says general power of attorney. That gives you broad powers. Financial, legal, property. Usually, for travel, we do a limited or springing POA that only activates if I'm incapacitated." Mark's face fell. He looked hurt. Genuinely hurt. "Elena, I just printed what the lawyer sent over. I told him I wanted to take care of you. If you don't trust me." He pulled away physically. He set his champagne glass down on the coaster with a sharp clink. It was a masterclass in manipulation. He made my prudence feel like an insult. He made my intelligence feel like a barrier to intimacy. At that exact moment, the front door opened. Sarah breezed in, carrying a garment bag and looking frantic. "Final fitting," she chirped. Then she saw the atmosphere. She stopped. "Whoa, trouble in paradise?" "No," Mark sighed, standing up and walking to the window, looking out at the street with a wounded expression. "Elena thinks I'm trying to. I don't know. Steal from her? I just wanted to make sure she was safe if an emergency happened." Sarah looked at me, rolling her eyes playfully. "Elena, seriously? The man is trying to protect you. You've been handling everything alone for 10 years. Can you just let go? Let him be your husband?" "I know," I stammered, feeling guilty. "It's just. General is a strong word legally. It allows for asset dissipation, for binding contracts. It's a standard template, Sarah insisted, walking over and pouring herself a glass of champagne, drinking it in one gulp. "I used the same one with my ex when we went to Europe. Nothing happened. Stop being so paranoid. It's ruining the vibe. You're going to push him away." Paranoid. That word again. It was the weapon they used to dismantle my instincts. I looked at Mark's back. He looked defeated. I looked at my sister, the only family I had left. They were both telling me I was wrong. They were both telling me to stop being a detective and start being a bride. I wanted to be a bride. I wanted to stop fighting. "You're right," I said softly. "I'm sorry, Mark. I'm just wired this way. It's the job." Mark turned around, his face softening into forgiveness. I know, baby. I know you've had to be tough. But you don't have to be tough with me. I'm on your team. He handed me a pen. A heavy, expensive Mont Blanc. I didn't read the rest of the clauses. I didn't see the section about unlimited asset transfer. I didn't see the section waiving fiduciary duty. I didn't see the clause that allowed him to act against my interests if he deemed it necessary for medical intervention. I just saw the signature line. I signed. I signed away my autonomy. I signed away my savings. I signed away my home. There, Sarah clapped her hands. Now, can we please focus on the dress? You're going to look stunning. Mark took the folder. He didn't just put it aside, he slid it immediately into his briefcase and clicked the lock. A small sound. Click. Final. Lying under the bed in the hotel room, hearing that click replay in my memory, I realized the horrifying truth. Sarah hadn't just walked in at the right moment. The timing was too perfect. She wasn't just a supportive sister. She was the closer. They had teamed up. My husband and my sister. They had served me up on a platter. But as the tears dried on my face in the darkness of the hotel room, a new thought occurred to me. A cold, sharp thought. They got the signature of Elena the bride. But they had forgotten about Elena the forensic accountant. And Elena the accountant knew something Mark didn't. I knew that in the modern world of digital banking and cybersecurity, a signature on paper is only as good as the access codes to the vault. And right now, I was the only one with the keys. I waited 10 minutes after the door clicked shut. I counted the seconds in my head, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, forcing my breathing to slow down. Panic was a luxury I couldn't afford. Panic makes you sloppy. Rage makes you blind. I needed cold, hard calculation. I slid out from under the bed. My limbs were stiff, my beautiful silk robe covered in dust bunnies. I stood up and caught my reflection in the mirror. My mascara was smeared, my hair a mess. I looked like a victim. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. No, I whispered to the empty room. Not a victim. I moved to the desk where my purse was. I pulled out my phone and my iPad. My hands were shaking, but my fingers were sure. Mark had said the bank opens at 9 a.m. He had the routing numbers. He had the power of attorney. In his mind, it was a done deal. He would walk in, present the papers, and wire the money. But he made a mistake. He assumed that because I was 52, I was technologically illiterate. He assumed that because I trusted him, I was careless. I unlocked my iPad. I logged into my primary banking app. Face ID recognized me instantly. I stared at the balance, $512,403.18. My life savings. The money from George's life insurance. The money from 20 years of auditing firms. I went to the settings. Mark had my account numbers, yes. But he didn't have my 2FA, two-factor authentication, device. That was in my hand. However, a power of attorney, POA, is a powerful weapon. If he walked into a branch physically with that document, a teller could override the digital blocks if they believed the POA was legitimate. He could claim I was incapacitated. He could claim I lost my phone. He could use that clause about medical necessity. I needed to make the account radioactive. I navigated to the security tab. I found the option for transfer limits. Current limit, $50,000 per day. I edited it. New limit, $10. Next, I went to the alerts section. I set up a custom alert. Any login attempt from a new device, any wire transfer request, any internal transfer over $1 would trigger an immediate text to my phone and an email to my lawyer, Mr. Henderson. But that wasn't enough. If Mark had a banker in his pocket, and men like Mark always knew a guy, he might bypass the limits. I needed to freeze it. But if I froze it completely, Mark would know immediately if he logged in to check. He would see account frozen. He would come back to the room, furious and violent, before I could get help. I needed him to think everything was fine until he was standing at the teller's window. I needed him exposed in public. I opened my email and drafted a message to the fraud department of my bank. I have a contact there, a woman named Janice I'd worked with on a racketeering case years ago. It was nearly midnight, but I marked it urgent, high priority. Subject: Fraud Alert Account, Redacted, Body, Janice, this is Elena Vance. My husband, Mark Carter, has obtained a power of attorney under fraudulent pretenses. He intends to drain this account at 9 a.m. tomorrow via wire fraud. Do not process any transfers. Flag his attempt as criminal fraud. I am safe, but under duress. I will be at the branch with police. Treat the POA as void. I hit send. Then, I took a screenshot of the email and sent it to my private cloud storage, a secure vault Mark didn't know existed. I wasn't done. I picked up Mark's phone. He had left it on the nightstand to charge when he went down with his mother. Arrogance. Pure arrogance. I didn't know his passcode. But I knew Mark. He was lazy. He was a creature of habit. I tried 1-2-3-4. No. I tried his birthday. No. I tried my birthday. No. I tried the date we met. No. My hands were sweating. If I locked the phone, he would know. I paused. What does a narcissist love most? Himself. I remembered his license plate. It was a vanity plate he was so proud of. King. I looked at the keypad. KING, 5-4-6-4. The phone unlocked. My stomach dropped. I went straight to his texts. There was a thread with Mom. Mark, she's asleep. Phase 1 complete. Mom, don't get drunk. Focus. 9 a.m. Mark, it's in the bag. The cow has no clue. I scrolled up. And then I saw it. A thread with S. She was asking about the POA. I shut it down. You owe me an extra 10% for that acting performance. Mark, relax, Sarah. You'll get your cut when the house sells. Just keep her calm tomorrow. Make sure you do the psych committal right. I don't want her showing up at my place crying. I can't deal with her drama. The betrayal was so absolute, so complete, it almost felt physical. My sister. Sarah. She wasn't just complicit, she was orchestrating my institutionalization. She was selling me out for 10% of the sale of my home. I forwarded every screenshot to my secure cloud. I forwarded them to Mr. Henderson. Then, I did something crucial. I deleted the forwarded messages from his sent folder. I wiped the evidence of my snooping. I placed the phone back on the charger, exactly at the angle I found it. I crawled into the massive, empty bed. I pulled the duvet up to my chin. I lay there, awake, listening to the hum of the hotel AC. I wasn't waiting for sleep. I was waiting for war. The sun rose over the city with mocking brightness. It bathed the luxury suite in golden light, illuminating the fresh flowers, the untouched champagne bucket, and the face of the man sleeping next to me. Mark looked like a fallen angel in his sleep. Relaxed. Peaceful. It was terrifying how easily evil could wear the mask of beauty. I watched the rise and fall of his chest, wondering how a heart could beat so steadily when it was filled with so much malice. At 7 a.m., his alarm buzzed. He woke up instantly, snapping into alert mode. He looked at me. I forced a sleepy smile. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. Good morning, husband, I cooed, the word tasting like bile in my throat. Good morning, beautiful, he leaned over and kissed my forehead. His lips felt like a brand. Did you sleep well? I didn't want to wake you last night. I had to deal with a crisis at the development site. I slept like a log, I lied. I didn't even hear you come in. Relief washed over his face. He bought it. He actually believed I was that stupid. That's good. You needed the rest. You've been so stressed. I have, I stretched, feigning laziness. But today is the first day of our new life. What's the plan? Breakfast in bed? Mark was already out of bed, pulling on his trousers. He was moving with a frantic energy. Actually, sweetie, I have a tiny bit of business to wrap up. Just an hour or so. A closing meeting. I couldn't move. Why don't you order room service, take a long bath, maybe go to the spa? My treat. On our first morning? I pouted slightly. I needed to sell the act. I know, I'm sorry. He buttoned his shirt, checking his watch. 7:15 a.m. But this deal, it's huge for us. It secures our future. I'll be back by noon, and then I'm all yours. Promise. Okay, I sighed. But hurry back. He grabbed his briefcase, the one with the power of attorney inside. He checked his phone. He grabbed his keys. I love you, Elena, he said from the door. I love you too, Mark, I said. The door closed. The second he was gone, I threw off the covers. The act dropped. I was dressed in 5 minutes, a sharp navy blazer, tailored slacks, heels. My audit armor. I called the front desk. This is Mrs. Carter in the penthouse. My husband just left. I need a car brought around to the side entrance. Immediately. I didn't go to the spa. I went to the bank. My bank branch was only 10 blocks away. I knew Mark would stop for coffee, he always did. He was arrogant. He thought he had time. I arrived at the branch at 8:15 a.m. The doors were still locked to the public, but I saw Janice inside. I tapped on the glass. She saw me, saw my face, and unlocked the door. Elena, she whispered, pulling me inside. I got your email. Are you okay? No, I said, my voice steady. I'm furious. Is everything set? The alerts are on, Janice said, leading me to the manager's office. If anyone tries to move that money, the system locks down. But if he has the POA. He's coming here, I said. He wants to do a wire transfer. He thinks I'm at the hotel. We can call the police now, Janice suggested. No, I shook my head. Not yet. Attempted fraud is harder to prove than committed fraud. I need him to try. I need him to hand over that paper. I need him to incriminate himself fully. I sat in the manager's office, watching the security monitors. The minutes ticked by. 8:30, 8:45. At 8:55 a.m., a black Mercedes pulled up. Mark stepped out. He looked magnificent in his suit. He adjusted his tie in the reflection of the window. He looked like a man who owned the world. And then, a second car pulled up. A taxi. My sister Sarah stepped out. I watched on the monitor as they met on the sidewalk. They didn't hug. They huddled. Mark handed her a thick envelope. Cash? A bribe? Oh, Sarah, I whispered, watching my sister check her makeup before following my husband toward the entrance. You picked the wrong side. The bank opened. They walked in. Showtime, I said to Janice. From the manager's office, behind the one-way glass, I had a perfect view of the lobby. It was a theater, and the final act was about to begin. Mark walked straight to the teller line, bypassing the queue with that air of entitlement he wore so well. Sarah hung back near the loan officer's desks, pretending to read a brochure, but her eyes were darting around nervously. Mark reached the counter. I saw him flash his winning smile at the young teller, a girl named Katie whom I had known for years. Good morning, I could hear him through the office speaker system Janice had activated. I'm Mark Carter. I'm here to handle a transaction for my wife, Elena Vance. She's indisposed this morning. Indisposed, I muttered. Code 4, about to be institutionalized. I have the power of attorney right here. Mark slid the document across the marble counter. We need to execute an immediate wire transfer of $500,000 to this international account. Katie picked up the document. She frowned. She typed something into her computer. One moment, Mr. Carter, she said professionally. I just need to verify the signature. Mark tapped his fingers on the counter. Tap. 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 The sound of impatience. Katie typed again. Then, a small red light on her terminal blinked. The silent alarm. Not for a robbery, but for a compliance breach. Is there a problem? Mark asked, his smile tightening. It seems there's a flag on the account, sir, Katie said, her voice calm. A security freeze was initiated late last night. A freeze? Mark's voice jumped an octave. That's impossible. My wife was with me all night. She didn't freeze anything. The system requires secondary authentication, Katie said. I need to send a code to Mrs. Vance's phone. No. Mark snapped, too loud. People turned to look. He lowered his voice. She's sleeping. She's not feeling well. That's why I have the power of attorney. Look at the document. It gives me full authority. I see that, sir, Katie said. But for amounts over $10,000, especially to offshore accounts, the system overrides a POA if a fraud alert is active. I can't process this without her confirmation. Mark pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking now. He dialed my number. In the office, my phone buzzed on the desk. Husband calling. I let it ring. Mark's face was turning red. He looked back at Sarah. She gave him a wide-eyed, panicked look. He dialed again. I picked up this time. I put it on speaker so Janice could hear. Hello? I answered, forcing my voice to sound groggy, like I had just woken up. Elena. Mark barked. Pick up the damn phone. Why is your account frozen? Mark? I yawned. What are you talking about? Where are you? I'm at the bank. I'm trying to pay the vendor for the house closing, and the teller says the account is frozen. Did you touch the settings last night? I don't think so, I stammered. I was just checking the balance before bed. Maybe I pressed the wrong button? You know I'm not good with the app. Well, unfreeze it, he hissed. They need a code. Read me the code that just came to your phone. A text pinged on my phone. Bank verification code, 889021. Okay, hold on, I said. Let me find my glasses. Elena. Just read the number. Mark, why are you yelling at me? I let a sob creep into my voice. You're scaring me. I'm not scaring you, I'm stressed. This deal is going to fall through if you don't give me the code right now. Okay, I said. It's 556. Mark repeated to the teller. No, wait, I said. Is that a 6 or an 8? It's blurry. I was stalling. Every second I stalled, the bank's security team was logging the interaction. Every lie he told was being recorded on the lobby cameras. Elena! He screamed. Sir, the teller interrupted. You need to lower your voice. Give me the code. Mark roared into the phone. I can't read it. I cried. Mark, just come back to the hotel. We can do it together. I don't understand why you need to send so much money. I am trying to secure our future, he yelled. Then he stopped. He took a breath. He switched tactics. The gaslighting began. Elena, listen to me, his voice dropped to a sinister, calm tone. You're confused. You're having one of your episodes. Remember what we talked about? Your mind isn't right. You need to trust me. Give me the code, or I can't help you. My episodes? I asked, dropping the act slightly. What episodes, Mark? You know what I mean. You're acting crazy. Like your father. Do you want people to know? Do you want to go to the hospital? The threat. There it was. Recorded on the bank line. Recorded on my phone. I looked at Janice. She nodded. We had it. Mark, I said, my voice suddenly crystal clear. I think you should look at the manager's office window. What? He asked, confused. Look at the glass office to your left. Mark turned. I stood up. I walked to the window and pulled the blinds open. We locked eyes. He saw me. He saw the phone in my hand. He saw the bank manager standing next to me. The color didn't just drain from his face, it vanished. The phone slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the marble floor. If you are listening to this right now, I need you to do one thing. If you want to see what happens when the police walk through those doors and the handcuffs come out, if you want to see the moment Sarah realizes she's lost everything, hit that like button and comment part 2 below. The finale is coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss how I used that $500,000 to destroy their entire operation. The silence in the bank lobby was not empty, it was heavy, suffocating, the kind of silence that precedes a thunderclap. It was absolute. It pressed against my ears. Mark stared at me through the glass partition of the manager's office, his mouth opening and closing like a fish thrown onto dry land. The color had not just drained from his face, it had vanished, leaving him looking waxy and gray, like a corpse that had suddenly remembered it was supposed to be alive. Sarah, standing a few feet behind him near the velvet ropes, realized something was wrong. She stopped checking her reflection in her compact mirror. She followed Mark's terrified gaze. When she saw me standing there, alive, awake, and armed with a smartphone instead of a straitjacket, she gasped. It was a wet, sharp sound. Her hand flew to her mouth, covering a scream, or perhaps a lie. I didn't rush. I didn't run out screaming. I opened the door to the office slowly. I wanted them to hear the sound. Click. I stepped out. The rhythmic sound of my heels on the polished marble floor echoed like gunshots in a canyon. Click. 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 Every step was a sentence. Every step was a reclamation of the power they thought they had stolen. Elena? Mark whispered. His voice was cracked, unrecognizable. What are you doing here? I stopped exactly 5 feet away from him. Close enough to smell his expensive cologne, Santal 33, a scent I used to love, which now smelled like deceit, but far enough that he couldn't touch me. I'm banking, Mark, I said. My voice was calm. Terrifyingly calm. It didn't sound like me. It sounded like the auditor I used to be, the one who stared down CEOs of Fortune 500 companies before handing them federal indictments. Same as you. I thought you were at the hotel, he stammered. He was vibrating, his eyes darting left and right, looking for an exit, looking for a lie, looking for anything to save him. I was just. Elena, baby, listen. I was trying to surprise you. This money, it was for an investment. A surprise investment. Stop, I said. I didn't shout. I didn't have to. The quiet authority in my voice carried to every corner of the room. The tellers had stopped working. The security guard by the door had shifted his stance. Save your breath for the police. Police? Sarah squeaked. She stepped forward, her face a mask of frantic denial. Elena, don't be dramatic. God, you always blow things out of proportion. He was just trying to help you. He's your husband. I turned my head slowly to look at my sister. My baby sister. The girl I had carried on my hip when our mother was working double shifts. The girl whose tuition I had paid. The girl who had sold me for a 10% commission. Help me? I asked, tilting my head. By telling him to commit me to a psych ward? By taking a cut of my life savings to pay off your gambling debts? Sarah recoiled as if I'd slapped her across the face. Her eyes bulged. How did you? I have your texts, Sarah, I said, holding up Mark's phone, which the manager had retrieved from the floor. The cow has no clue. Remember that one? Make sure you do the psych committal right. Remember that? Sarah went pale. She looked at Mark with pure, unadulterated hatred. You idiot, she shrieked, her voice cracking. You said she didn't know the passcode. You said she was stupid. Shut up. Mark snapped at her, veins bulging in his neck. He turned back to me, putting on his best charming smile, though his eyes were terrified. It was grotesque, watching him try to wear the mask when the straps were broken. Elena, baby, look. This is a misunderstanding. Sarah is lying. She manipulated me. I was just trying to protect your money from her. I swear. She's the one with the debt. I was moving the money to keep it safe from her. You swore yesterday, too, I said. At the altar. To love and to cherish. Remember? I held up my iPad. I pressed play on the recording from under the bed. I had connected it to the bank manager's Bluetooth speaker in the office. Mark's voice boomed through the lobby, amplified, tinny but unmistakable. She signed it. I'll drain her $500,000, commit her to that facility, old fool, she thinks it's a fairy tale. The words hung in the air, toxic and undeniable. The customers in the lobby were staring. The tellers were whispering. Mark lunged. It was a desperate, animalistic move. He didn't think, he reacted. He reached for the iPad, for me, for control. He wanted to smash the evidence, or maybe he wanted to smash me. But he never reached me. Federal agents. Get down. The command came from the back office. Two men in plain clothes, detectives Janice had called 20 minutes ago, along with a liaison from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, emerged with weapons drawn. Mark froze. He looked at the guns. He looked at me. And then, he crumbled. Two uniformed officers stepped in from the street entrance, grabbing him by the arms. Mark Carter, the lead detective asked, holstering his weapon and pulling out cuffs. You're under arrest for attempted wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny. No. No. Mark struggled, his suit jacket tearing at the shoulder seam. That's my wife. That's my money. I have a power of attorney. Look at the papers. It's legal. The power of attorney was revoked at 8 a.m. this morning. Mr. Henderson, my lawyer, walked through the front doors. He was an older man, gray-haired and sharp as a razor, holding a briefcase like a shield. He looked at Mark with utter disdain. And given the recording of your intent to commit Mrs. Vance involuntarily under false pretenses, we are also adding charges of criminal conspiracy, emotional abuse, and, let's see, attempted kidnapping. The officers kicked Mark's legs apart and slammed him against the marble counter. Click. Click. The sound of the handcuffs locking was the most satisfying symphony I had ever heard. It was better than any wedding bell. It was the sound of my freedom. Mark twisted his head to look at me, his face pressed against the cold stone. His eyes were wild, filled with a mixture of rage and terror. Elena. You can't do this. I love you. I made a mistake. Don't let them take me. I'm your husband. We can fix this. I stepped closer, right into his personal space. I looked him dead in the eye. You're not my husband, Mark, I said softly. You're a bad investment. And I just liquidated you. They dragged him out. He was screaming, crying, begging, a complete collapse of the facade. The successful developer, the perfect gentleman, was just a scared, greedy little con man who got caught by the wrong woman. With Mark shouting and being hauled into the back of a squad car visible through the glass doors, the lobby fell silent again. But the air wasn't clear yet. There was still one person left. Sarah. My sister was standing near the brochure rack, trembling. She hadn't moved. She looked small. She looked like the little girl who used to hide behind my legs when our father came home drunk. For a split second, a heartbreaking second, I wanted to go to her. I wanted to hug her and tell her it would be okay. But then I remembered the text. I can't deal with her drama. The detective turned to her. Sarah Vance? I didn't do anything. Sarah cried, backing away until her back hit the wall. Her hands were up in a surrender pose. I was just here. I didn't sign anything. I'm just the sister. I didn't touch the money. We have text messages confirming your conspiracy to defraud your sister, the detective said, pulling out another pair of cuffs. And we have a warrant for your phone to check for other communications. We believe you provided the security answers to Mr. Carter to bypass the bank's protocols. Sarah looked at me, tears streaming down her face, real tears this time, tears of self-pity and fear. Elena, please. Stop them. I'm your sister. Mom. Mom would never want this. Please. I have debt, Elena. You know I have debt. They were going to break my legs. Mark said it was easy money. He said you wouldn't feel it. I wouldn't feel it? I repeated, my voice shaking. You helped him plan to lock me away in a mental institution, Sarah. You were going to let me rot in a padded room so you could pay off a bookie? That's what I'm worth to you. 10%? I didn't think he'd really do the hospital thing, she sobbed. I thought he was just talking. Elena, please. I'm family. This was the hardest part. Harder than Mark. Mark was a stranger I fell in love with. Sarah was my history. She was the witness to my childhood. To see her like this, corrupted and cruel, broke something inside me that I don't think will ever heal completely. But I looked at her, and I didn't see my sister anymore. I saw an accomplice. I saw a woman who watched me walk down the aisle yesterday and smiled, knowing she was sending me to my doom. You're right, I said, tears finally spilling over my cheeks. Mom wouldn't want this. But Mom raised us to be honest. She raised us to protect each other. You broke that, Sarah. You broke us. I turned my back on her. Take her. Elena. No. Elena. Her screams were shrill and desperate as the officer cuffed her. I didn't turn around. I stared at the bank manager's abstract painting on the wall, focusing on a single red dot of paint, breathing in and out until the doors closed and the screaming stopped. Mr. Henderson placed a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, Elena. It's over. Not yet, I said, wiping my face and hardening my heart. There's one more. The head of the snake. Mr. Henderson nodded. Barbara. She's at the hotel, I said. Waiting for the good news. She thinks Mark is coming back with champagne to celebrate my financial funeral. The police are already on their way to the plaza, the detective said, stepping back into the lobby. We have a unit securing the perimeter. Do you want to be there? I thought about it. Did I want to see her? Did I want to see the woman who called me an old fool? Yes, I said. I want to see her face when she realizes the check bounced. The ride back to the Plaza Hotel was surreal. I was in the back of a police cruiser, flanked by Mr. Henderson. The city of Chicago rolled by outside the window, busy and indifferent. People were buying coffee, walking dogs, rushing to work. They had no idea that inside the most expensive suite in the city, a woman was waiting to destroy a life. When we arrived, the police didn't use sirens. They wanted the element of surprise. We went up the service elevator. The SWAT team, or at least, the tactical entry team, was already there in the hallway. The hotel manager looked pale and terrified, holding a master key card. "She's in there," the manager whispered. "She ordered a bottle of Cristal 10 minutes ago." "Cristal," I scoffed. "Celebrating on my dime." The lead officer nodded to me. "Stay back, Mrs. Carter. We don't know if she's armed." "She's armed with malice," I murmured. "But she's too cowardly for a gun." The officer swiped the key. The light turned green. They breached the door. "Police. Search warrant. Nobody move." I stood in the doorway, protected by Mr. Henderson. Barbara was sitting on the velvet chaise lounge near the window. She was wearing a silk robe, my silk robe, I realized with a jolt of anger, and holding a champagne flute. When the police burst in, she didn't scream. She didn't drop the glass. She froze. Her eyes went wide, scanning the room, assessing the threat. Then, her eyes landed on me. For a second, there was confusion. Then, realization. And finally, a look of such venomous hatred that it almost physically pushed me back. "You," she spat. "You ungrateful little rat." "Mrs. Barbara Carter," the officer said, stepping forward. "Put the glass down. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, elder abuse, and racketeering." "Elder abuse?" Barbara laughed, a high, brittle sound. "I'm the elder here. This is ridiculous. My son handles my finances." "I don't know what you're talking about. Get out of my suite." "It's not your suite, Barbara," I said, stepping into the room. "It's mine." "And the card you used to order that champagne?" "That's mine too." "You think you're smart?" Barbara stood up, tightening the robe around her. "You think you've won? Mark will fix this. Mark always fixes this." "Mark is in handcuffs at the First National Bank," I said. "And Sarah is in a cell right next to him. You're all alone, Barbara. No one is coming to fix this." That was the moment the mask slipped. The arrogant matriarch crumbled. Her shoulders slumped. Her face seemed to age 10 years in 10 seconds. "I just wanted what was best for him," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We have debts. The developers, they were going to kill him. We needed the money, Elena. We needed it fast." "So you decided to kill me instead?" I asked. "Not physically, but you were going to kill my life. You were going to lock me away." "You're strong," she sneered, regaining a flicker of her nastiness. "You would have survived the asylum." Mark wouldn't survive the creditors." "That's not my problem," I said. "Officer, get her out of my sight." As they handcuffed her, she started screaming profanities that would make a sailor blush. They marched her out, past the shocked hotel staff, past the guests peering out of their rooms. I stood alone in the honeymoon suite. The bed was still unmade. The dust I had inhaled under the bed was still in the air. I walked over to the table where Barbara had been sitting. I picked up the glass of Cristal. It was still cold. I walked to the bathroom and poured it down the sink. "Checkmate," I whispered. "If you think the arrest was the end, you don't know how narcissists work. Narcissists don't accept defeat, they rewrite reality until they are the victims." 2 days after the arrest, while Mark was sitting in federal holding denied bail, his lawyer, a slimy man named Mr. Sterling who charged $800 an hour, filed a motion. I was sitting in Mr. Henderson's office when the paperwork arrived. "What is it?" I asked, seeing Henderson's jaw tighten. "They're doubling down," Henderson said, tossing the file on the desk. "They are claiming that you did have a mental breakdown. They claim you coerced Mark into the bank scheme as a cry for help, and that you are now framing him due to paranoid delusions. They want a psychiatric evaluation ordered by the court." I felt the blood rush to my face. "They are using the gaslighting in court." "It's the only card they have left," Henderson said. If they can prove you're incompetent, the recording under the bed becomes inadmissible. They'll say you hallucinated the context. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked at the Chicago skyline. I had spent 30 years auditing companies. I knew that numbers didn't lie, but people did. They want a fight? I said, turning back. Okay. Let's give them a war. How? Henderson asked. We have the evidence, but the legal process is slow. They can drag this out for years. They can bleed you dry in legal fees. No, I said. A plan was forming in my mind. A plan so cold it scared even me. I'm not going to fight them with lawyers alone. I'm going to fight them with economics. Elena, what are you thinking? Mark said something to Barbara at the hotel, I recalled. He said, the investors are getting impatient. Barbara said, the developers were going to kill him. They have debts. Huge debts. So? So, I smiled, a shark smile. Debts are commodities. They can be bought. I spent the next week doing what I do best. I didn't sleep. I dug. I used every connection I had in the forensic accounting world. I traced Mark's shell companies. I found the LLCs. I found the shadow loans. Mark wasn't just broke, he was underwater. He owed money to hard money lenders, to shady construction firms, to offshore entities. And he had a primary creditor. A distressed asset firm in New Jersey holding $2 million of his bad commercial paper. I liquidated a portion of my portfolio. Not the savings Mark tried to steal, I kept that safe. I used my investment accounts. I called the firm in New Jersey. This is Elena Vance, I told the bewildered asset manager. You are holding a default note for Mark Carter. I want to buy it. You want to buy bad debt? He asked. Lady, that paper is worthless. He's in jail. I'll give you 50 cents on the dollar, I said. Cash. Today. He sold it to me in an hour. 3 days later, I walked into the detention center to meet Mark. Mr. Sterling was there, looking smug. Elena, Mark said, looking haggard in his orange jumpsuit but still trying to maintain that arrogant posture. I knew you'd come. Look, tell the lawyers to drop this. We can work it out. I forgive you for the scene at the bank. You forgive me? I asked, sitting down. I know you're not well, Mark said, his voice dropping to that fake soothing tone. I know you're confused. Just sign the release, get me out, and I'll take care of you. I reached into my bag. Mr. Sterling tensed up. If that's a recording device. It's not, I said. I slid a document across the metal table. It's a foreclosure notice. Mark frowned. He picked it up. He read the header. His eyes widened. What is this? I own your debt, Mark, I said calmly. I bought the note from the New Jersey firm. I am now your primary creditor. So, he sneered. I can't pay you. I'm in jail. Exactly, I said. And since the loan is in default, and you secured it with your personal assets, I am seizing everything. Your condo. Your car. Your watch. Your expensive suits. And. I paused for effect. Your legal defense fund. What? Mr. Sterling sat up straight. He secured the loan with his liquid assets, I explained to the lawyer. Which includes the retainer he paid you. That money is mine now. It's proceeds of fraud mixed with collateral. I looked at Mr. Sterling. You might want to check his account balance. The freeze order just went through. Mr. Sterling pulled out his phone. He tapped furiously. His face went pale. He looked at Mark. Then he stood up. I can't represent you if the retainer bounces, Mark. You can't leave me. Mark screamed. She's bluffing. I never bluff, I said. I ought it. Mr. Sterling walked out. Mark was left alone with me. You took everything, he whispered. You took my lawyer. I took your leverage, I corrected. Now, you have two choices. You can continue with this insanity plea, and I will make sure the IRS investigates every single tax return you've filed for the last 20 years. I will find every penny you hid. I will bury you under so many federal charges you won't see sunlight until you're 90. Or, he asked, tears forming in his eyes. Or you plead guilty, I said. Full elocution. You admit everything. You admit the gaslighting. You admit the conspiracy with Sarah and Barbara. You exonerate me completely. Mark stared at me. He looked at the foreclosure notice. He looked at the door where his lawyer had just fled. He realized then what he had truly done. He hadn't just messed with a lonely widow. He had messed with a woman who knew how to weaponize the fine print. I'll plead, he whispered. The plea deal didn't stop the investigation. It accelerated it. Once Mark started talking, the dominoes fell fast and hard. But the most painful part wasn't the legal battle. It was the discovery phase. Because I wasn't the only one. When the FBI seized Mark's laptop, the password to which I happily provided, they found a folder labeled Projects. I wasn't a wife to him. I was Project Bluebird. There was Project Rose, a teacher in Ohio who lost her pension. There was Project Daisy, a nurse in Florida who lost her home. He had a type. Professional women. Independent. Slightly older. Lonely. Women who had built something for themselves, women who were proud of their independence but secretly yearned for someone to share it with. I sat in the FBI office, looking at the photos of these women. They looked like me. Kind eyes. Hopeful smiles. We contacted them, the agent told me. Most of them didn't even know they had been scammed. He told them he was investing their money. He sent them fake statements every month. I felt a wave of nausea. How much? Over $4 million, the agent said. And Barbara was the architect. She found the targets on LinkedIn and dating sites. She built the profiles for Mark. I thought about Barbara, sitting in her cell, complaining about the thread count of the sheets. She wasn't just a greedy mother. She was a predator. I asked the agent for a favor. Can I talk to them? The other victims? I can pass along your contact info, he said. A week later, I organized a Zoom call. 5 women. 5 strangers connected by one man's greed. At first, there was shame. We all felt stupid. We all felt like old fools. I should have known, the teacher from Ohio cried. He was too good to be true. No, I said, my voice firm. Stop that right now. We are not stupid. We are trusting. There is a difference. He weaponized our best quality against us. He used our capacity for love to steal our capacity for life. Do not let him take your dignity too. We talked for hours. We cried. We raged. And then, we organized. I used the rest of the funds I had recovered, and the proceeds from seizing Mark's assets, to help them. I couldn't get all their money back. Mark had spent too much on luxury cars and gambling. But I helped them file the tax write-offs for theft. I helped them secure their remaining credit. I helped the nurse in Florida save her house from foreclosure by restructuring her debt. We became a sisterhood. The ex-wives club, we joked darkly. But the most important thing we did was prepare for the sentencing hearing. Usually, financial crimes get a slap on the wrist. A few years. Minimum security. Not this time, I told the group. We are going to make sure the judge sees the human cost. We wrote impact statements. Not just about the money. About the trust issues. About the nights we couldn't sleep. About the humiliation of telling our children that their inheritance was gone. We turned the numbers into narratives. And narratives, as I had learned on YouTube, are powerful things. The day of the sentencing was gray and rainy in Chicago, but inside the federal courthouse, the air was electric. The courtroom was packed. The victims were there, sitting in the front row, a wall of solidarity. I sat with Mr. Henderson. Mark entered in a beige jumpsuit. He looked smaller. His hair was thinning. The charm was gone, eroded by months of confinement and the realization that he was no longer the main character of the story. Barbara was there too, in a separate defendant's box. She looked frail, playing the confused old lady card one last time. But the judge, Judge Coleman, wasn't buying it. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the podium. I didn't bring notes. I didn't need them. Your Honor, I began. Mark Carter didn't just try to steal $500,000 from me. Money is replaceable. I can earn more money. What he tried to steal was my sanity. He tried to convince the world, and me, that I was crazy, simply because I was a woman over 50 who dared to love him. I looked at Mark. He couldn't meet my eyes. He called me an old fool on tape, I continued. He thought my age made me weak. He thought my loneliness made me blind. But he forgot that with age comes experience. And with loneliness comes resilience. I gestured to the women behind me. He did this to all of us. He is not a businessman. He is a parasite. And parasites do not stop until they are removed. Judge Coleman nodded. She adjusted her glasses. She looked at Mark with a gaze that could freeze water. Mr. Carter, the judge said. In my 20 years on the bench, I have seen many fraudsters. But your cruelty stands out. You didn't just rob these women, you hunted them. She looked at the papers. For the charges of wire fraud, conspiracy, and aggravated identity theft, I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison. Mark gasped. 15 years. It was more than the guidelines suggested. And Mrs. Barbara Carter, the judge turned to the mother. For your role as the mastermind, for exploiting your own son to prey on others, I sentence you to 8 years. Barbara started to wail. I'm an old woman. I'll die in there. Then you should have thought about that before you tried to put your daughter-in-law in an asylum, the judge said coldly. Court adjourned. As the bailiffs led them away, Mark looked back one last time. He looked at me. There was no anger left in his face. Just confusion. He still didn't understand how he lost. I looked at him, and I felt nothing. No hate. No love. Just the indifference you feel when you throw out the trash. It has been 1 year since that day in the bank. My life looks very different now. The Victorian house is still there, but I repainted the living room. The color Mark chose is gone, replaced by a warm, vibrant yellow. I didn't go back to corporate auditing. I realized I didn't want to help corporations save pennies anymore. I used the settlement money and the rest of my savings to launch The Second Look. It's a nonprofit agency. We work with women and men who are entering late-life marriages or relationships. We vet partners. We audit assets before the wedding. We teach financial self-defense. We are the paranoid ones, so our clients don't have to be. Sarah is still on probation. She sends me letters sometimes. Apologies. Explanations. I read them, but I don't reply. Forgiveness is a journey, and I haven't bought a ticket for that trip yet. Maybe someday. But not today. I date occasionally. But the dynamic has changed. When a man tells me he wants to take care of me, I smile and tell him, that's sweet, but I take care of myself. I'm looking for a partner, not a manager. I kept the recording from under the bed. It's on a USB drive in my safe. Sometimes, when I doubt myself, when I feel that old pang of maybe I'm too difficult, I listen to it. I listen to Mark calling me a target. And then I listen to the sound of my own voice at the bank, calm and steady. It reminds me that the most dangerous thing a woman can be is underestimated. So, to everyone listening, to the women who think it's too late for love, to the men who think they can exploit kindness, remember this story. If you are hiding under a bed, holding your breath, waiting for the truth, come out. Stand up. Turn on the light. The truth might hurt you, but the lie will kill you. And if you ever find yourself in a bank lobby with a man trying to steal your future, remember Elena. Remember that you have the power. You just have to be brave enough to use the glitch. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to relive, but if it saves just one of you from signing the wrong paper, it was worth every tear. Please, let me know in the comments what you would have done in my situation. Would you have bought his debt like I did? Or would you have just walked away? I read every comment. And don't forget to check the link in the description for the Second Look resources. Stay safe, stay smart, and never, ever let anyone tell you that you are too much. If you liked this story, please like and subscribe. My next video is about a woman who discovered her husband's secret family at his funeral. You won't want to miss it. Stay strong.